As I sit here in 2020, I debated as to whether or not to read this entry of my diary to you. A couple of reasons. One, it was very personal and probably not suitable for all audiences. And so if you are underage, just stop this one here and go on to the next one. But also because in 2020, I have been with the love of my life, Howard Baskin, since 2002, and it just feels wrong to read this. But it's what happened at the time, and I think it's important to know what my state of mind was back on September the 28th in 1997. This picture of me was one of the news articles that came out right there at the time of Dawn's disappearance. And in it, you can see I am wearing my standard gear, which is my beeper. I was always available by beeper. And I'm also carrying a bottle of vinegar water. So when I would go in the cages with the lynx and the cougars and the tigers and cats I would never go into cages with now. Back then, what I would do was spray that on my hands and on my arms, on my ankles, because I ran around barefoot a lot. And that way, if the cats bit me, they would taste that vinegar and they'd just be like, ugh, people taste terrible. So that's why I was always carrying that on my hip. The main reason for showing you this picture, though, is that if you look at the background, everywhere you looked at Wildlife on Easy Street back in September of 1997, it looked like that. And it was actually worse than that, because by the time this picture was taken, I had at least a full month of being able to haul out dumpster load after dumpster load of all of this garbage that Tom would bring home and dump in the yard. So this is just a really small sampling of what everything looked like out there. As far as you could see across 40 acres, it was just wall to wall trash like this and broken down vehicles. This part of the property, you can't see any of the vehicles in the background, but everywhere there were box trucks and broken down school buses and pieces of broken earth movers and just every broken down piece of junk that Don could get for a steal, he would bring home and park in the yard. And I don't even remember how many of those roll-off dumpsters we paid for over the years, but it had to be in the hundreds of them to haul all of this trash out of here. And it took us years to get rid of all of it. September 28th, 1997. I miss Don so much. Some people say they have seen him. How can the passion we shared be gone? How could he just walk away and not look back? Why? 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 I remember looking at real estate with Don. It was always an adventure, and I would always feel like I was riding on the edge with him. We pulled up in the driveway in Don's pickup truck, expecting the house was abandoned by the overgrown yard and broken windows. This house was in an awful neighborhood, and just getting from the truck to the back door of this long-forgotten home was making the blood race through my veins. I was expecting to be ambushed at any moment, and although we had scouted the house out through the windows, we never knew who might be using these shells for cover. Don was an expert at breaking and entering, as it was his policy to never break, and yet no building had ever proven impervious to him. And that's something we always did. If we had to get into a property, our rule was you don't break a window to get into a property. You figure out some other way to get into that property. And this isn't in here, but I remember the funniest time ever was going through the pet door and getting stuck in the pet door. Oh my gosh. Yeah, Don's hips were narrower than mine. We always made ourselves known while on the outside, although this day we were quieter than usual due to the danger of drawing attention to ourselves in this part of town. Once inside, we were always cat-like in the quiet, cautious way that we would search out every room, always watching each other's backs. The hair would stand erect on the back of my neck, and I would sweat in nervous anticipation. Don always carried a gun in his sock and a gun in his pocket, but I was his eyes and ears. His senses had dulled, and I had to be always on guard. Once we were certain that we were alone in the house, we could look at it again through different eyes, the eyes of the real estate investors, who knew what would be expensive to repair and what would need only superficial attention in order to turn this into a profitable venture. The kitchen is often the most neglected and most costly to replace, and as usual, our second search commenced here. I stood at the sink, looking out the window, wondering what it would be like to have lived here, and had for my daily view the depressing sight of burned buildings, graffiti, and violence. I thought about the desperation of being so impoverished that I could not change my status in life, and the complications of addiction and unwanted children that would further add to my burdens. When behind me, in his amorously happy voice, Don said, "Can you think of anywhere we haven't done it?" Coming back to the present day reality, I looked down and said, "Only the kitchen sink." He pulled me close and kissed me, long and soft and gentle like he always does. I get lost in his kisses. The rest of the world just floats away, and nothing matters anymore except the sweetness of his lips. I've never been kissed with such intensity and passion before Don nor since. I was so lost in his love that I barely even noticed he was unbuttoning and unzipping my jeans. I was so lost in my desire that I don't even know how he undressed. All I remember was being thrust up onto the sink and the feel of Don sinking deep inside me. I was howling with the pleasure and complete abandon of the danger this could bring on us. I love the way he makes love to me, so tender and with such force that I cannot think of anything but him, and all else fades away in ecstasy. There are so many moments that we shared like this. I always thought the magic was in us, but maybe it was all his.